CashMap. CashMap Consulting LLC. They have all the solutions for your financial woes you're dealing with today. Listen, I'm actually a proud member of CashMap Consulting LLC. I'm going to be on the phone with Dennis Williams tonight, talking to him about what's next with CashMap and how it's going to help me get my finances in order. And this is a program that's real simple, folks. All you have to do is download this app. There's a monthly fee, but what you'll get in return is you'll see those high interest rates drop greatly. You'll see thousands and thousands of dollars per year savings. And over the lifetime of loans like your home or car payments and other large interest payments, you'll see massive amount of savings. That's right. CashMap Consulting LLC. Give them a call today and let them know that the Kevin Allen Show sent you. Wait, did I say Kevin Allen Show, Mark? I know I did, because this is Kevin Allen on the Prayed Up Network. So, but I can't get it out of my system because I go back to that Kevin Allen guy. Ironhawk Financial, Joseph Lombardi, managing partner. That's right, 203-815-3673. Ironhawk Financial specializes in taking your financial investments and restructuring so they can take advantage of the tax code. That's right. All legal, all financial advice from Joseph Lombardi, been in the business over 20 years. Reach out to Ironhawk Financial today. Let them know that the Kevin Allen Show, again, I just said it. What is wrong with me? I don't know, Mark, but here I go. You've been working on this one, Mark. The Prayed Up Network and Kevin Allen, that's right, sent you over to Ironhawk Financial. Go and check them out today. You will not be sorry. And here we are. Welcome. Here we are. It is the Prayed Up Network. And I know I was saying the Kevin Allen Show, and we still kind of exist in that world, but we are moving forward in 2024, moving onward, upward, and moving into places where we have really healthy conversations about really positive information. We don't want to share the negative. I mean, the negative of the news drove all of us crazy over the last couple of years. And one thing that I learned about what happened during the COVID lockdown, during the political debates, during the, the social, equity conversations we have, is we all suffered from a lot of mental health. We also, physically, we were getting sick. We were actually mentally and physically falling apart by watching this media-driven discussions that were dividing our country. I left that. I don't participate in that anymore, and I hope you don't. What I found was to talk to real people, just average everyday people that do shows like I do on the internet-based programs that we have. And one of my faves is, it goes back a while, and I just loved her spirit because she's just a calm, soothing person. She has a medical background. And we're going to talk with Janet, which is the Deplorable Janet, of course. I don't think she's deplorable. I don't know why I don't want to call her that because I think she's pretty cool. So let's bring Janet on here, talk to her about her story. She has a medical background, and I think I'm going to pick on her, her mind here today on some of the things that might be, pressing on me in my heart today. Let's welcome Janet to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me back.
Thank you so much. Hey, thank you. There we go. We got your video. We got you. And thank you for coming on today. We from Tennessee, right? You're down in Tennessee, right?
I am.
How's the weather down there? We got snow.
Warm and beautiful now. A couple of days ago, we had a freak snowstorm.
Okay.
But that's all gone. So now it's going to get really cold again. It's like, if you're not happy with the weather here, just wait because it'll change in 5 minutes.
That's what I've heard. I have some friends and family down there, and Somerville. I don't know how far that is, but everyone in Tennessee, everyone outside of Tennessee thinks when you say Tennessee, you're in Nashville, right? And Nashville is just a small part of Tennessee. So it's Mark and I, we just talked before we got on the show. We definitely want to get down there. I want to get down there with Mark and go check out the area because it's just a connection for us. You have a pretty diverse background in you're in the medical field, education. You're now doing this on your online program, and you also seem like you just kind of are a caring soul. So tell me a little bit about you again, so we get you caught up with the listeners.
Okay, so for me, I've been in the medical field pretty much ever since I could have a job. And I've done every aspect of medical field, whether it's billing or collections, appeals, nurse. I'm a retired nurse, so I did that for a very long time. I worked as a autopsy assistant, so I've done every side of the medical aspect that you could do, even home health. And then from there, from my nursing career, the doctor that I worked for in the teaching facility thought that it would be a great idea if I would agree to mentor students as a proctor on our site. And I was like, I don't I don't know, because at the time I was very shy and, I guess not real confident in myself, and I thought, "Oh, this is probably not gonna be a great job for me," but I ended up doing it, loving it, and from there went on to teach in a classroom, um, medical assistant students, nursing students, physician students, you name it. I had, like, every kind of student under the sun. So,
When did you start in the do you mind me asking when you started in the medical field? Like
oh my
around,
lord. Well, I'm pretty old, so
no, we can quote you on age. I didn't
when
want to do that.
when
Anyway,
yeah.
I just messed up. I'm sorry.
And
You've been doing
I
it a while.
don't mind, 'cause
Good.
I don't look my age, so, I am 54 years old, and so I started in the medical field, like, when I was 18 years old.
Okay.
So,
Well,
I have done that
you and
my
I are
whole
both
life.
54, Janet. We're both 54. So we're
Mhm.
very blessed and God has been good to us.
Exactly. Mhm.
Exactly. So, but I guess maybe more to the question, has there been a lot of changes in the medical space that you've
Oh,
seen in the
definitely.
evolution over that time?
Definitely, and, I think the biggest shift kind of happened when, Obama was in office and was mandating that everybody go electronic. So all the records, patient records, notes, all that stuff had to be, electronic, and so doctors were getting bonuses and incentives. The more patients they would see, the more money they would get, the more prescriptions that they would write, the bigger the bonuses that would
Mhm,
come in, and so that started shifting things drastically away from patient-centered care
mhm,
to more paperwork-centered
mhm.
stuff.
Do people I mean, you just brought up something, and I don't think people realize how much bonuses that doctors actually, not because I was state
Mhm.
legislator and I sat through lots of testimony
Right.
previously here in Connecticut. Doctors make a really good chunk of their income comes from a
Yes.
lot of these incentives to give prescriptions, to
Yes.
push these policies into the patients. Your
Mhm.
observation, good, bad, can work in some cases, not good. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a horrible idea, and here's a case in point. There is a large pharmaceutical corporation that came out with, antidepressant drugs, and so what they were seeing, there was 2 strengths, and so the patients would start taking this drug on the lowest dose possible, and then they were having homicidal thoughts and all this crazy behavior, and because it was such a push to put this pharmaceutical in the forefront of patient care, they would up the patient's dose instead of, okay, well, maybe if you're standing over your husband of, 50 years and you want to harm him, maybe we should back you down or take you off that medicine. But instead, they would force a higher dose on them. And that's what you see in the medical industry is you always have to have a cocktail, right? And I don't mean alcoholic cocktail, I mean a
Mhm,
cocktail of medicine. And so,
mhm,
especially for people who are come in with depression,
mhm.
they also diagnose him with anxiety at the same time. And so you have like a cocktail of drugs that you take. And so the problem with that is it they never get better. Like, it never improves anything. Their mood never changes. They're still angry. They're still, sad, upset, depressed, anxious all the time, and people can't understand why. And
Mhm.
most of the time, it is dietary related
Okay.
and spiritually related.
Mm. Was that a conflict to navigate the spiritual and the science side of your industry
Yes.
when you worked, or even
Yeah,
as you do
and
continue?
my whole thing is I have always been true to who I am and what I felt, even though, I was very ignorant to a lot of stuff because of the
Mhm.
indoctrination from school, right? But if a patient would come in and they're like, "I'm having pain," I would have discussions with them like, "Do you do massage?" Or give a patient a massage if I had extra time, talk to them about diet, things like that, that are never really discussed
Mhm.
in patient care.
Right. Right. And do you think that people that, like I said, so this is a really cool question. This is a cool conversation because I myself have been very open. I have accepted that I have, suffered from mental health issues in my life for
Mhm,
certain. Quitting alcohol 2 years ago, sobriety, and I didn't realize in my sobriety, although I was able to quit like that, all the other effects were going on in my mental and my body. And I find now that I'm reaching out to different people like yourself, and it's interesting because there's lots of alternatives, but our traditional Western medicine, financed by, as we said, unfortunately, some very, very scrupulous characters in pharmaceutical,
mhm.
they don't seem to profit from that kind of heartfelt care approach. And I'm just
No,
wondering, can we shift that in America? Is there any way we can shift that over into more of a hands on approach like you do with holistic?
I think that's a big change has come because more and more people are, reaching out all the time, not just to me, but to other people in the community to be like, okay, what can I do to make myself better? Because this is what the doctor says, and I don't really feel like that's going to work for me. How can I do something that's going to benefit me?
Right.
And even there's a like misinformation, misdirection in the fad community, right? Where it's either, vegetarian or vegan or South Beach or this or that or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's because so little information is allowed to be accessed by patients. They don't know
Mhm.
where to turn
Mhm.
because there's so much, I call it garbage,
Mhm.
rubbish.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
weeds in their garden,
Sure.
and so
Sure.
that's the first thing is people reaching out because they don't know where to start, and
Right.
second of all, people are turning to herbs and essential oils and holistic healing methods, sound frequency, emotion code, things like that were never addressed in Western medicine.
And what never addressed probably in
Mm.
some ways because they're economically, kind of cheap. There'd be a cheaper method. They'd be
Mhm.
not as profitable to the big, conglomerates of medical services that we have in our
Right.
country. Mental health. Your observation. You seem like you're in tune with mental health pretty tightly. So,
Mhm.
mental health and medical, and of course they're one in the same in a lot of ways, but also ignored, as you said, and who presents how and how we deal with them in this space of hospital space.
Mhm.
Mental health, is it a bigger issue today in 2024 than it maybe has ever been, especially after the
100%.
lockdown?
100%. And the not just that, but the confusing of society's youth, right? And they don't everybody is always looking for a way to belong, to
Mhm,
be a part of something, to feel important. And a lot of the traumas and things that we see mental health wise these days are
mhm,
things that stem from childhood. And it can be even things where your parents weren't parenting right because they didn't know how to parent.
mhm,
Somebody didn't
mhm,
teach them, like, how to properly raise a child, and that that even at the earliest stages, like 6 months and up, you get those memories imprinted, in your psyche of, you know, a parent, like, slapping you because you peed on him when you were changing a diaper. Well, the
mhm.
baby doesn't know why you did that.
Right.
And so those things are ingrained.
Mhm,
And then the more traumas that you experience throughout your life, we store those emotions at a cellular level, and
mhm,
those emotions can make us very physically ill because we
mhm,
don't address the problem and we don't, um uh, number 1, seek God for spiritual healing, because when you
mhm,
do that, you're able to let a lot of those things go. But even with people that suffer from PTSD, they have to confront the reality that they are no longer victimized, they're
Mhm,
safe. They're
mhm.
safe now because that situation is over, but a lot of people compartmentalize and they can't separate that, uh, past trauma from current reality. So
Interesting. Yeah, and yeah, I'm experiencing. As I'm going through my own journey, and I'm very public about it.
mhm,
Sobriety, the mental health, starting my life over. I've never been independent
mhm,
in my life until this year. 54 years old. I never lived on my own before, so a
right,
lot of changes. And men, especially in this country, I feel like and not that men have certain problems and women have certain. We just have to say that that's true. But men
mhm,
specifically, I think we have this sort of program that we have to be strong, we have to be,
right,
you can't cry, you can't show your emotions, and
right.
I just find that mental health seems to be such a key to so much of the physical and
It is.
the just the problems, suicide. I mean, I see it in so many different careers. Drug abuse in our country, and you talked a little bit about alternative medicines. I am big on cannabis products, and I
Mhm,
mean, I'll put it out here. I'm very public to have a conversation. I'm in the industry in many ways, legal. I'm not looking to supply drug dealers on street corners, but I do think that CBD, specifically cannabis products in the right dosing, even some psilocybin stuff that's going on with the way that
mhm.
it's using it for mapping the brain and just correcting that mental health issue. Should we be looking at those things as those natural solutions and really see if society can shift into more of a norm with that?
Well, yes, absolutely, but the pharmaceutical industry is never going to allow that to happen because that is the largest industry in the United States,
Hmm.
and they make their living off of you being in a continual cycle of unwellness or dis-ease, right? It's not disease, it's dis-ease, and so if they can't keep you in that system, they
Hmm.
lose a client, and they consider that something high dollar.
Hmm.
Now, are cannabis and things of that nature helpful? Yes, but I would also say that you can definitely see, um, mental faculty decreases and stuff in patients who overuse.
Overuse, correct. Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
So there's
Yeah.
a fine line, and then like anything that you put into your
It's
body,
like
I
it
mean,
even vitamins.
right. Too much food, you're going to get heavy.
Mm.
Too much alcohol, you're going
Right,
to be whatever we can pick it off the tree of life
right.
here. But the simple question, I guess, really is alternatives. And I think you summarize. I mean, listen, battle against big pharma. We saw what happened in 20. The lockdown and things that took place there. How much
Mhm,
government? And I know you speak on this too because you have an opinion on a lot of different things that are going on in the
mhm.
world. The government's sort of supporting that system in a way really leads to almost the really deceitful corruption that's going on, right? Because we're being forced by government to not just get forced to have to take things sometimes like we experience, but also they're forcing the approval, right? Like fast
Right.
tracking these
Yes.
things. What's your take on that? Because the average everyday
It
person probably doesn't realize.
We've actually done several shows on this. It's called the revolving door, because the government has a lot of people that work in like the CDC that go on to get big jobs, CEOs or otherwise, in all of the big pharma companies. If you are an approval person that works at the CDC or other departments of the federal government where you're trying to approve not only medications but um, like products or things of that nature, those people also go on to work at big pharma, or in the reverse, big pharma executives go on to work in the approval process within the government. And so it is a continual revolving door. I think 18 of the last 24 CDC directors went on to be bigwigs in big pharma.
No surprise. And there's a so me having the background in the political system, I understand. Like
Mhm,
I could have gone out and after one term could have been a really heavily paid, healthy paid lobbyist to work
mhm.
for big industry. And I'm not
Right,
here to bang up on people that are working hard every day. There's a lot of good people that are great lobbyists that try to do great
right.
work, and there's
Mhm,
probably good people in the pharmaceutical world that try to do good things. But the
mhm.
system itself is so big and massive and just such a machine to feed that I just don't see. how it's really helpful without accepting other alternatives. And that's the one thing you hit on is they're never
Mhm.
going to let it. And so we have to figure out a way how to circumvent it. You talked about Christ.
Mhm.
I'm pleased to say that I am saved and praise Jesus. And I,
Amen.
this has been an unbelievable journey. It did 53 years for me to take this walk. And I just want to ask, what's the impact of Jesus in your life and your spirit of how sort of, are you enjoying the walk with Jesus in 2024?
I I do because, one of the best things ever, is in Thessalonians where it talks about, you should have joy, you should continually pray, and you should always be, grateful for every situation and everything. And so that's really important in my life because my heart is so full of joy that I love serving other people. I love, being of service in any way, whether it's, my time or money or, products, place for somebody to stay, food boxes for people, whatever it is. And the thankfulness part is really hard for some people, because anytime something happens, like I had a friend who had a great big sheet of ice up there in Connecticut yesterday, come off the semi and smash her windshield. And I said, I know it's bad that that happened and you're going to have to pay money, but be thankful and, rejoice in the fact that you are still here. And so
Right.
that is like the focus in my life. I have had so many terrible, bad things happen in my life,
Hmm.
but I'm so grateful that they did because
Hmm.
I would not be the person that I am today if they had not happened. And
Have
he
you,
has
how,
saved me countless times from horrible decisions, bad life decisions,
mhm,
and even being thankful for the smallest things like moving and your truck bed is full of furniture or whatever, and it starts pouring down rain and it wasn't supposed to. And you're like, oh, please, God, let the rain stop,
mhm,
and it stops,
right.
or rerouting you on a different way that you've gone 100 times just so he can show you different countryside that you've never seen,
So
or
true. So true.
animals to show up that you miss seeing, or something.
Mhm.
Everything is a way to rejoice and give thanks to him.
How do you go about in your life? And I ask you as a Christian, I
Mhm,
as well, a new walk for me, and it sounds like you've been doing it for a bit. How do
mhm.
you encourage others who are curious in Christianity to look into Christianity? Because I just talked to you before we went live, and I was like sharing a little bit of a moment with me where I'm trying to figure out why there's some Christians that are just they have great intentions, but they're just a little too aggressive, right? There's that
Right.
push away Christian. And we hear a lot about churches. I have a really great church here in Connecticut I go to. It's a home for me, but I've been
Mhm.
to a lot of churches and I'm sure you as well. Sometimes they push back and almost like deter you from wanting that, being curious. How do you handle that to get someone to be curious about Christ?
Um, it kind of comes easy when you have that joyfulness in your heart and you have that positive, giving, loving attitude and all the things, grace, mercy, kindness, patience, and love, and you're there for people and you show up for people. People see that in you. It's kind of like you're a disciple of Christ, right? And so people can see those traits and they want to be near you. And it's your personality kind of draws them in. And so then you can share things a little bit of at a time about,
Mm. And we're just going to work on. We lost Janet's audio there for a second, but I'm sure we'll be back on here in a second. We'll get her back on right in the middle of explaining how she gets people to convinces people to come back to, or at least look at Christ. See if we can have her back on. Janet, you better now? We have the sound. Hello. All right. Looks like we might have had a little issue with Janet on this episode, but I'm going to give a second, see if Mark, any type here in the minutes here for the notes rather. Janet, you there? All right. So what we'll do is we'll see if Janet can come back in the room, and as she is coming back into the room right here on this episode on the Prayed Up Network, I'm really getting into this conversation because one of the things I'm curious about in my walk, as I was getting with Janet on this question, is how we go about welcoming new people to Christ. And I'm wondering what you think out there. I mean, we talked with Janet about our medical background, which is important because a lot of us in this walk with Christ, we really want to have that individual choice. And we were going to get into that in a moment when Janet gets back on. That choice is one of those things when you have choice in life, you can choose your medical, you can choose your future, you can choose your religion. And Janet, are you back on? We have you back?
Yep. Can you hear
Very
me?
good. Thank you for that. And I apologize for any, maybe the big government's hearing us talk with this open
They don't like
conversation.
that talk, yeah.
They don't, do they? But welcome back. And we were getting into that welcoming of people to Christ, and you do it in a way, like you said, it's just natural, right? And
Mhm,
you see people that can go in a room, and people gravitate towards that.
mhm.
What is one of your things? If I asked you for what is your biggest turnoff about Christianity, and that's a really weird question,
No,
but
it's not.
okay,
I can answer that easy, churchiosity.
churchiosity.
So many churches these days are a business model.
Mm,
They're not Christ-centered, they're not scripture-centered, and it is all about getting people in the door and making money.
right,
And there's little focus on growing somebody's faith, helping to lead them down the path that they should be on, and helping them to learn God's word.
right, right. Do you find it
Mm.
sometimes too in that concept? I mean, we hear about what Joel Osteen, right? This is the big mega
Right.
church guy, and he seems to be the poster boy for that kind of attention. And I've been to a lot of big church. I've been to some mega churches too. They are way entertaining. I got to tell you, there's some entertainment going on in there, and I saw
Mhm.
a value of the people. But I know what you're saying. It's like a big multi-million-dollar business, and I just
Yes.
wondered, like to me, on my walk, I just want to go to the alleys, streets, the
Mhm.
the jail cells. I want to go, to the back churches, coffee hours, and things like that. So I think you and I are probably similar. Do you think there's a new breed of Christian in America, in your opinion? We are 54. I'm sorry you
Mhm.
said that earlier, but we'll confirm that.
It's
Um,
okay.
it's already on tape. But we're in our age, we've lived a pretty interesting life. We've seen the 70s into the 80s, 80s into the
Mhm.
90s. Of course, the 70s were the revolution of some sort of the revival, and we see
Mhm.
movies being made about it. Do you think a revival is about to happen in America? In the near
I
future.
do. I do because I think the church community, the body of Christ, not church as in a building, but church as in Christ people. I think that is growing by leaps and bounds.
Mm,
And that is probably one of the reasons why they want to censor and shut down anything about God or God centered, God driven on social media
mhm,
platforms because they don't want that getting out. I mean, look at during lockdowns, what did they do? They shut down churches
mhm,
because that's where people gather. And
mm.
when two or three gather in his name, you know, your energy and your strength coming together to worship is a beautiful thing.
It
And so
is.
I think that's just gonna grow and grow, and the more people that can be out there independent of a church as in building, um, and spread the word through, stopping people randomly at the grocery store just to say, hi, or those simple things lead to the most beautiful conversations when you least expect it. And that's when you can share things. And you don't have to preach at somebody. People can feel it through your spirit, and
Mhm.
then it's kind of like, I want to be like that. How can I be like that?
Right. So lead by your walk, not your talk.
Right.
And so I love that, and I do love the fact that
Mhm.
the simplest is to just go out and do it.
Mhm.
A lot of us need to read the scripture, and I know I fail to read as much as I should, and but I just love talking about Christ. I love talking about
Mhm.
good over evil, right over wrong, and just love.
Right.
And I think that's what we need to focus on. So your alternative, I wouldn't say alternative. You have a background of discipline medicine and science and Western science, but you have alternative approaches. You actually now you have. Would you call you wouldn't call them patients? Would they be clients? Are they
I don't charge anybody anything. And
okay?
so not just people that I talk to on the show, but I do I make a lot of holistic products at home. I craft my own spices that don't have all the garbage in them.
Mhm.
I craft my own vitamins. I make, specialty herbal teas and things like that. And I will just randomly send them to people
Mm.
whenever I get the inkling that somebody needs something,
So that's
you
just your
know.
good deed for the day. You just
That's I just enjoy doing it. I love doing it. I love helping people. I mean, there are so many ways that you can use your gifts or your,
Mhm,
God-given gifts, spiritual
mhm,
gifts, and for me, like, we have taken in people that needed a place to stay before. I've sent food boxes to people. I've, done great big things for benefits for people, stuff like that, just because I enjoy being able to give to other people. Helping people rehab from drugs and alcohol. I've done that multiple times. I like doing that because that's my purpose. I'm here to be of service to people.
I've been open about my alcoholism, and alcohol in America is probably one of the underlying biggest issues, health issues I think
Mhm,
facing American. 11 years old. I just talked about this yesterday. I was 11 years old, I think, when I started drinking alcohol, and
mhm,
grew up in an environment in the 70s. Of course, our parents just put cans of beer in their laps and drove around the streets. And of course, things have
with
changed.
no seatbelt.
Yeah, with no seatbelts and without us being, and smoking cigarettes with the windows up. And it was a
Right.
great time to grow up in America. But I find alcohol, like, I know that it's my problem, and I don't like. I go in the bars, I sit at the bar tops and eat. It has no issues. The day I quit alcohol, I never turned around and needed a drink again, and that's
Mhm,
unique, right? That's a
right.
very unique. So, but I deal with a lot of folks that are battling alcoholism, and it's the addiction of alcoholism of society. They have to have a can in their hand. And so I wonder how much of your work with people with alcoholism do you have successes with? Because a lot of people seem like, and I'm worrying about this myself. At some point, you trip, right? You fall, you get that chip, and that chip, you go back to the beginning. And I haven't gone through that process. Have you seen a lot of success in the engagement you've had with some people with alcohol? And I think we got a bad signal. Janet will come back on again and we'll get that answer, because that's a pretty unique. So when I'm asking that answer, if you don't understand what I'm getting at, is the alcohol that is seems to be, we see the commercials, if it's the Bud Light commercial, and I'm not one of those people that says that if you can handle drinking, just drink, right? I'm not. I'm saying do anything you want to do that's legal and safe, but sometimes you don't realize how alcohol, in my case, snuck up on me, and I completely became a stone cold alcoholic. Let's see if Janet is back here. And again, Janet, how are you? Welcome back. I'm sorry for this, but we got a system now. I just bounce you out, you come right back in. The question was, how many have you had some successes with the people you work with alcohol?
Absolutely. And a lot of the reason that people drink is because they have a trigger that makes them drink. Whether it stems from, family relations, or anytime something gets, stressful or out of hand or whatever, like, that is their go-to mechanism, to have alcohol to numb that, to make that better. And so working with people to find out what it is that causes them to want to have that craving or want to have that desire,
Mhm.
and helping them to work through those emotions to lessen that desire, it makes people last a long time instead of just entering rehab, and then you're clean for a while and then you relapse and stuff. If you focus on the central problem,
Mhm.
usually you can solve that for a lifelong thing.
So you were in the medical field during probably the beginning, and you now in this independent part of your life where you're kind of choosing what you do.
Mhm.
Heroin overdoses have become an epidemic in this country, and keeping on the same kind of vein of addiction,
Mhm.
heroin is seems to be now. Of course, fentanyl is being put in laced in marijuana, street level
Right.
stuff, and it's everywhere. So fentanyl's. I try to understand. I try to tell people, like, based on my law enforcement background, some things that I've been involved with. Heroin is heroin, and then there's dirty heroin, which sounds like a total stupid comment, but that fentanyl, and then now there's dirty weed, right? They have the
Right.
fentanyl, and fentanyl seems to be the influence. We know the southern border, China, all that. Um,
Mhm.
what is that impact on the medical system of heroin overdoses? And just it must be a lot of time spent in hospitals, say, dealing with this one issue specifically. Would that
Mhm.
be right?
Right, and it's not just heroin. I mean, back in the '90s, early 2000s, it was the same way with having, opioids. And so the level of the addiction and the amount of addiction patients that come through the hospital, and then a lot of the staff is very undereducated or ill-educated on how to treat, a patient with substance abuse problems. And one of the big things is that a lot of the facilities where you would send a patient from the hospital or from a doctor's office that needed inpatient treatment, you cannot get them a bed. There are not enough beds at facilities for substance abuse patients at all. You just can't find them.
Now, I know that from back serving back in 2013, 14, 15, when things were coming on to
Mhm.
the epidemic was hitting. In fact, we had,
Right,
27 overdoses in our county at that time when I
right.
was a municipal leader.
Mhm,
That same response was being echoed then. So you're telling me back 2014, 2013 to
mhm.
2024, we still haven't worked on solving that one problem for enough beds.
Correct.
What do you think why do you think that system's kind of log jam? Do you think there's some reason behind that, or just
Bureaucratic red tape?
yeah,
So how do you make money if you're a pharmaceutical giant or even a drug cartel or whatever, if your patients go to rehab and get treated? How do you keep them in that loop or in that cycle, which there are movies that are made about that where they will pay people
mhm,
to re-enter rehab
mhm.
as a thing to keep that government money flowing
That's
and stuff.
insane. That's insane. Yeah,
So
that's insane.
that's the problem though, if you have somebody with addiction,
Mhm.
even if it's a really, really severe addiction, a lot of times they're like, "Nope, I'm not going into a facility. I'm not gonna do it."
Right.
And so regulations, red tape, and the treatment of people in facilities is pretty shoddy. It's very bad. I mean, they don't have the training that they need, honestly.
Understood. Uh, I'm going to change it up a little bit. Why deplorable? Why did you put a tag like that on your name?
Well, first it was a joke, after Hillary said deplorable.
Okay.
And then I got to thinking there was actually, during, I think it was World War One, there was a group of soldiers that were called the deplorables, and they
Sure.
would go in to do the things that nobody else wanted to do, and
Mhm.
they'd get them done. And that kind of sums up my personality to a T because, you know, there are times where like somebody may call you 20, 30 times a day or send you 50 text messages in a row or whatever. And that may, set off some people, but I've learned to have so much patience in my life for other people that they wouldn't be calling me if they didn't need me for something.
Mhm.
And so it's a good tag name for me. I mean, honestly, because it suits me.
So you're willing to do that battle, and I'm going to just assume you can confirm. Christ kind of inspires you probably to do a lot of what you're doing with people,
a
which I
hundred
heard from
percent.
your own words. So
Mhm.
you're one story of, three, how many Americans live, how many billions of Americans live here in this country. We know that the country's changing demographically, economically.
Mhm.
We're seeing an influence at the southern border. Health, the health business itself, with the influence of the southern border coming into America, based on what you know and your background, how much of a burden is that on the system for the average
It
American?
it's gonna be a huge burden on especially the taxpayers in America because the people that are coming in haven't
Mhm.
been screened for any kind of diseases or illness of any kind. And so when they go into a facility, they are free care. And who's gonna pay that? The hospital's not just gonna treat everyone for free. They want money, and so your tax money is gonna go to the government to go back to these hospitals just like it does for housing, food, the whole 9 yards, or the credit cards
Right.
that they're handing out for people.
How do you juggle the humanitarian side of the issue? So I'm preparing sometime in May to go down with PFA, Patriots for
Mhm,
America. Sam Hall, he's been on net, all kinds of different shows have covered his story. It's a militia
mhm,
group that actually does some patrols down on the southern border, and I
mhm,
did a documentary about 3 years ago with him. Um, I'm expecting to go see some really horrific things,
mhm.
and I don't smile about it in a sense of the scary that I'm going to see. But I'm worried about how we just become complacent with that kind of scene because we
Right.
know what's going on. We're getting up in the morning, drinking our coffee, going to work, and I know we're average everyday people. What can we do? And then our people in DC and the people that are responsible seem like they're just it's a political football that gets thrown around for some kind of vote in November.
Mhm.
What do we do to fix the southern border? And just throw your opinion out.
There is no place, even in the Bible, that did not have a border, right?
Hmm.
Because Israel has always had its own border from neighboring neighboring territories and stuff. And so everywhere in the world has a border. It's
Hmm.
it's that way. It's always been that way. And to me, we need to ensure the safety and stability of our people that are here while still being, we can still love one another and be humanitarian toward, whatever the cause is.
Hmm.
But when you have people that are coming all the way from China
Yeah.
into the United States,
Hmm.
they should be migrating to countries that are closest to them,
Right.
right? And to me, the government's not going to fix it. The government doesn't want to fix it. They want, in my opinion, the destruction of our civilization here. Because when you have all these different cultures and societies coming together, there's definitely going to be a clash. Like color revolutions in the past. And here's why I say that, because every culture is so different in their beliefs, even in their medical stuff, or their treatment of men and women is very different. Like, I had a lot of patients that were from, Africa and different places, and they were genitally mutilated because they don't believe in their culture that women should be anything other than a childbearer. You should get no pleasure from anything. And so it's common for them to do that. And then people here don't have the training that it takes to know how to fix or repair or help some of these people that have been, you know, mistreated like that. And
Insane.
so
And I'm sure.
that kind of stuff puts a strain not only on the hospitals, but
Right.
on social workers, on police force, on literally every aspect, even the court system, like every aspect, because they don't have to abide. They've never had to abide by the laws like we have here.
The system
So,
is definitely strained. That's a really good point. So
mhm,
let's wrap up on a high note here, and
mhm,
not high because I talk about cannabis and CBD, but a high note of laughter. Laughter is something that we used to. I remember laughter is like the 80s, I just feel like I laughed. And of course, I was a kid like you, and we just
Mhm.
laughed a lot, right?
Right.
Jokes were, jokes are now more politically motivated in some ways, and it's always a picking on somebody. Do we need more laughter? And is laughter healthy for the spirit, in your
It
opinion?
is very much more healthy for you because the it takes way less to smile than it does to frown. It takes more muscles to frown. And when you are lighthearted and happy, your energy levels better, you feel better. And
Mhm.
so life is way too serious to not be able to like make fun of yourself or laugh at things. I think there's so many people that get offended by any kind of like jokes or even sentences, like we can find the humor in them, but a lot of people get very offended by it. And I think
Right.
that's the codification of our society now is babying, people who shouldn't be. You should be teaching them how to live and thrive as an adult and to serve God for a better purpose than to be upset all the time. Because God didn't instill us with fear. We as man do that to ourselves. It's a snare that we set for ourselves.
Deplorable Janet, where can people find you if they want to, follow you and maybe reach out to you for some great advice? Where can they
Sure.
find you at?
They can find me on Instagram at Deplorable Janet. You can find me on Facebook at Janet Fox. You can find me on Twitter or X at No Janet, KNOW. You can find me on Rumble at the Deplorable Nation podcast, or you can listen to Deplorable Nation wherever you get your podcast at.
Very cool. Janet, thanks for coming on today. We would definitely talk to you. I'd like to get you into the rotation. So Mark and you will be talking about setting that up for the next time. And
Sure.
anytime you need us to help you out with anything, just let us know. We're here for you. Okay.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Janet. So there you go. Deplorable Janet. She is not deplorable. She's actually pretty enlightening and definitely inspiring. Putting a smile, and just feels good to have conversations like this. You notice we didn't go deep into the politics. There was names that came up, like even Hillary Clinton, but we didn't go aggressive because I think Janet and I share a common sort of theme, which is, we've been there, done that. We know what that energy brings. We know what the future needs, and the future needs more just real conversations like this, talking about how we solve problems, how we can work through those differences. I believe these are the conversations that you're going to really enjoy right here on the Prayed Up Network. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Deplorable Janet today with Kevin Allen.